Epic Universe, the most highly anticipated theme park of our generation. And after years of waiting for this park to finally come to fruition, we are just months away from it finally opening its doors to the public. But given the fact that this is going to be the hottest ticket in town, nonetheless the hottest ticket in the world, how can you make sure you get the most out of your day? You certainly don't want all that time and money spent going to this park that you've been waiting to visit for so long to go down the drain because you ended up waiting in line for things that you didn't really need to wait in line for, or you end up wasting time trying to navigate around the park and getting lost. This lack of knowledge from everyone who's going to be visiting the park is going to result in thousands of people, no joke, every single day who walk away doing less than what they had hoped to do when they entered the park that morning. So though a concrete game plan is usually not necessary for the existing Universal parks, for Epic Universe, especially within the first few months of opening, you're going to want a game plan and a strategy to make sure you're getting the most out of your day because the crowds are going to be so ridiculous, and of course you're going to be walking through a theme park that you have no idea how to get around. Simply put, you do not want to be put on the back foot and ultimately walk away having a disappointing day at a theme park you've waited years to visit. That is the last thing you want. You want to make sure you're getting as much done as possible when you visit the park, getting to experience as much as possible without wasting your day away doing things that quite frankly you just shouldn't be doing at that certain time. So now that we know the vast majority of details for Epic Universe, I can safely lay out a foolproof strategy to navigate this park from open to close to make sure you get the most done and get the most out of your day as humanly possible when you visit Epic Universe within its first few opening months. But we will do this from the perspective of opening day. Because, I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to visit on opening day? And truth be told, folks, the day starts off very easy. All you have to do is wake up. Yes, that's right, folks, you are waking up early. And for good reason. Of course, the park will likely open up, if I did guess, about 9 a.m. Eastern. I mean, after all, that's about the time that the existing Universal parks typically open their doors. But you do have to remember, since it is opening day, there is likely going to be an opening day ceremony that will likely start anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour before opening. So you're going to want to get there fairly early. Now, of course, you want to get there early so you can see the ceremony, but you also want to get there early so you can get a good spot in line for rope drop. You want to try and be as far in the front as possible. Of course, if you're in the front, that means you get to be one of the first people in line for whatever ride you get to first, which is a significant advantage because it means that you don't have to wait in line for that ride. And though that would be nice, let's be honest, folks, that's likely not going to be you in front of that line because let's not forget, this is opening day of a brand new theme park. There are going to be people lining up outside of the parking structure before you're even awake. These people will be lining up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning because they want to be front row for the opening ceremony and they want to be front row for rope drop. So they will gladly show up hours before they're even allowed to be in the park, just so that way they can be front of the line. And we saw this with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge when that opened up at Hollywood Studios. People were lining up for hours prior to even being allowed to park their car. So listen, I have you waking up early to get there on time for the ceremony. I do not have you waking up early to get in the front of the line because that is just not feasible and it's silly because quite frankly, we want to be there for the full day. We want to be there from open to close. We do not want to be tired by the end of our day because we woke up so early to be front of the line in the morning. It's not worth that amount of effort. Sleep in a little bit later and save your energy for the rest of the park day. And the great thing is too about this strategy I've devised, this grand scheme, is that it does not really matter where you are in line for rope drop. It really doesn't matter. You could be literally all the way in the back. It does not matter because it's a foolproof plan that will allow you to walk onto a ride guaranteed when you enter the park without having to be at the front of that line. Because you see, once opening ceremony is over and they cut the rope, everyone goes crazy. They're like, yay, park's finally open, let's go. You know that people in the front of the line are going to start sprinting. And where are they sprinting to? Where are they going to try and be the first people in line for that ride and the first people to get to experience that land? Where are they going? Let's not kid ourselves, folks. There are two places they're going. They're either going right at the entrance, or they're going left at the entrance. And if they're going right, they're going to the Harry Potter land, the Ministry of Magic ride. They are going there first because that's, of course, the most highly anticipated ride in the park. Yes, the land itself is maybe not at the top of people's to-do list or the top of people's ticket, but of course Harry Potter is still the big kahuna at the Universal Orlando Resort, and this ride is supposed to be something incredibly special, and it's the ride we know the least amount about as well. So people really want to be the first to experience this one-of-a-kind attraction that we really know nothing about. And if they're going left, then chances are they're going to Super Nintendo World. As we know, there are going to be a lot of Nintendo fans flooding the Orlando theme parks once this land opens, and it's going to be the top priority for a lot of people. Yes, the land has been open in Hollywood for quite some time now, but a lot of people have been waiting for Epic Universe to open for them to finally travel out and see the land. And of course, with Mario Kart being the flagship attraction for the land, that is ultimately where most of these people are going to funnel into. So that really leaves you with two options: being at the back of this line and not being someone who's going to run. You're walking, there's no reason for you to run, you're taking it easy, save your energy once again. There's really two options for you. Either you go to the back left part of the park and you go to Dark Universe, or you go to the bottom right part of the park with How to Train Your Dragon. Now, you might say, oh, well, I prefer to go to Dark Universe, so I'm going to go there. But here's the problem. One, obviously it's further back in the park, so it's going to take you much longer to get there if you go that way. You're wasting time doing that. But also, keep in mind that Dark Universe is going to be a much more popular land, especially on opening day, versus How to Train Your Dragon. Think about the type of people in the park on opening day. It's not necessarily going to be very many families that are there on opening day. Chances are opening day is going to be a lot of the sweats, it's going to be a lot of the diehards, and a lot of locals. There's not going to be a whole lot of that tourist group family that you typically expect to find in a Disney or Universal park. That's not going to be very common on opening day that you see there. And what land appeals the most to that group? It's the How to Train Your Dragon land. So if those guys are not in the park, which they probably will not be, at least not in big droves on opening day, guess what land is going to be the most empty at Rope Drop? How to Train Your Dragon. Now, on subsequent days, it may behoove you to go to Dark Universe instead, but on opening day, there's no question about it. How to Train Your Dragon will be the most empty land at Rope Drop. And of course, the great thing about it is that it has the most rides of any land. Rides that, because you're the first person in the land, will likely all be walk-on, and you can hit them all back to back to back to back with next to no wait whatsoever. And in case you needed a refresher on what these great rides will be that you're getting to experience with no waits, you're going to have Hiccup's Wing Gliders, which is the roller coaster in the land. You're also going to have Dragons Racers Rally, which is the flat ride. And since it's like Dumbo, where it has two of these flat rides next to each other, I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to walk on. There's not even going to be a chance at all you're going to wait for this thing. So this would definitely be the last ride, I would say, to hit up in this land. And then the other one is Fire Drill, which is the water boat battle ride. And not to mention, of course, like we established earlier, your walk to this land is going to be much shorter than it would be to either of the lands in the back part of the park. But the also other great thing about the location of this land is that as soon as you get outside of it, guess what? There's another major attraction right there, that being Stardust Racers. Now, Stardust Racers has great capacity because it has these two different roller coasters going right next to each other. It's basically double the capacity of your normal roller coaster. So the lines here throughout the day are likely not going to be too bad in comparison to other rides in the park, but you can hit this thing for probably next to no wait right after you're done with How to Train Your Dragon, and likely ride both sides if you really wanted to, no problem, by hitting it this early in the day. So after you've done this, you've probably done somewhere between 4 to 5 rides if you've ridden Stardust Racers twice, and you've done this all in probably about 2 hours, maybe less than that, so it's probably about 11 a.m. Now, you might have noticed that when I said wake up, I did not say go have breakfast, because you're not eating breakfast, or at least I would recommend against having breakfast, to be quite frank, because you're gonna go have lunch right now at 11 a.m. I know, sounds a bit early, sure, but if you didn't have breakfast, this is gonna be a great time to go, because the crowds will not be bad at these restaurants whatsoever at this time. You have to consider, whether it's opening day or the first few months of operation, these restaurants are going to be a bit slow in their operations. It could easily run into some issues as far as getting food out. They're not going to be as efficient or as smooth as the existing parks restaurants are. And given the obscene amount of people in the park, if you were to go have lunch during the lunch hour, the lunch rush, somewhere between 12 and 4 o'clock, you're going to be running into substantial lines. And if operations are slow, those lines are going to take even longer to process than you might be accustomed to. So going this early for lunch could allow you to avoid that line altogether and avoid those waits altogether and get your lunch with next to no wait whatsoever. And just so you know, this strategy of having an early lunch or an early dinner does apply to even the existing Universal parks, by the way, too. This is just a well-known hack that you should probably be adopting in general, quite frankly. Now, that being said, if you're against the idea of having lunch this early, or you insist on having breakfast in the morning, then a better solution for you would be to eat at one of the sit-down restaurants. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more than it would if you went to a quick service place, but you could get a reservation in advance. Now, they likely will not let you book a reservation before the day you visit, especially if it's opening day, but you could call the morning of when you get to the park, and they will likely accept your reservation, and you'll be able to get into that restaurant with relative ease and have your meal without having to wait in a massive line. Though it will take longer to eat because, of course, you are getting that full service sit-down meal as opposed to just getting a quick service thing where you can go up to the window, grab your food, and eat it right away. But nonetheless, that is an alternative option for you if you really insist on not having lunch this early, but I still recommend that you do have it this early. And a few options for you: you could go back into the How to Train Your Dragon Land and eat at the Mead Hall. That place looks pretty cool. You could also, sign up for the hike to cross the park and go over to Dark Universe and try out either the quick service locations there. And there certainly are other quick service locations available in the main hub. What I would avoid doing, even at 11 a.m., is going to either the Harry Potter restaurant in that land or the Toadstool Cafe in Super Nintendo World. Both of these locations are going to be mobbed all day. Do not even try it. It's not going to be worth your time. Now, of course, if you really want to go to these restaurants and they're the end all be all, then sure, go ahead and do them. Wait in that line and it'll be worth it at the end of the day. But if you want to go ahead and get your food without having any wait whatsoever, literally go anywhere else. And when we're talking about optimizing your time, getting as much done as possible, this is obviously the route you should be going. And don't worry, those restaurants will still be here next time you come when the park is a lot less busy. So presumably, you've had your lunch and it's only taking you about an hour to get your food and eat. So it's 12 o'clock. It's middle of the day. Most people at this time are rotating to that second land. Maybe they've already finished with their first land of the day. Perhaps they're moving and rotating to lunch, meaning that there are going to start to be some opportunities for you as far as good wait times go. That being said, I would avoid going to Harry Potter or Super Nintendo World at this time. Wait a little bit longer. They're probably still pretty busy and pretty packed at this moment. So chances are you either ate in the hub or you ate in Dark Universe. So if you're already by Dark Universe, go ahead and stop in there, do the 2 rides there. You might walk into a decent wait, but it shouldn't be too bad, at least in comparison to everything else in the park at this moment in time. I mean, after all, the horror diehards who rope dropped this land, whether have been done with it or they'll have rotated to one of the quick service restaurants to eat lunch at this point in time. So the lines for the rides should be very minimal and probably should be the lowest wait times really across the entire park at this moment in time. Of course, the ride I would prioritize first of the 2 would be Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein Experiment. Wow, what a name. But that's definitely the flagship ride here. It's like Forbidden Journey. That one's going to be really cool. And then, of course, you do Curse of the Werewolf, which is the spinning roller coaster after it. And don't get it twisted, folks. This is a controlled spin coaster. It is not going to be making you nauseous or dizzy. It's going to really feel very comfortable riding this ride. So you do not have to worry about that if you're concerned about that. So you've done both of those rides. Let's call it 2 o'clock. It honestly might be earlier than that if the strategy works well enough, but let's assume it's 2 o'clock. And at this point, you've already done a lot. You've achieved a lot. You've ridden more than half the rides already at this point. You have been extremely productive already in this day. However, there are 2 lands you haven't even stepped foot into yet for fear of large crowds there. The good news for you is that because it's 2 o'clock, it's right in the middle of lunch rush. So most people are going to be going to get something to eat at this moment in time, meaning there will be lower wait times at the rides in those most popular lands. So this is really where you enter the choose your own adventure path of this game plan, and that's basically because you get to choose where you go from here. You could go to Nintendo, you could go to Harry Potter, it's really up to you, and I guess it depends on what the wait times look like on that particular day, at that particular moment. Has Harry Potter broken down at this point? I think we know that that's going to be a very likely possibility to be happening in the early days, as some ride breakdowns are going to happen, and that's probably the ride that's going to be most susceptible to them. So, if the ride's breaking down, you might want to prioritize doing that, even if the wait time is long, just to make sure you get it in before the park closes. After all, this is one of the most technologically advanced rides Universal has ever made, so even though I have kind of booted it to the middle of the day here for you to have the opportunity to ride, I do still think it should be a top priority for you to make sure you ride before the end of the day. But of course, you also have the Nintendo rides available for you to do at this moment in time, with the Mario Kart ride, the flagship ride of this land, with its augmented reality technology, which makes it interactive in a sense that we've never really seen on any other ride before. You also have the somewhat, physics breaking ride in Minecart Madness, the Donkey Kong roller coaster that's going to have you jumping the track. That's obviously a ride that's at the top of a lot of people's to-do list. And then of course you have Yoshi's Adventure, which, that's a fun omni mover if you are coming with, kids. Yeah, this is a great ride to prioritize for sure. I don't think it's actually going to have that long of a line in comparison to the other two rides, so this is definitely one that you can do when you're exiting the land and not necessarily when you have to do right away. But even though you will likely get some good deals as far as wait times go on those most popular rides, you're still going to be waiting pretty significantly. I wouldn't be surprised if you're waiting at least an hour, if not more, for rides like Mario Kart and the Ministry of Magic ride at this time, but I guarantee you they're going to be much higher at other parts during the day. However, as a result of that, you're really only going to have time to tackle one of these lands, because by the time that you've already taken care of everything you wanted to do in that one land, the lunch rush is going to be over. So lines and crowds in that other land that you have yet to visit are going to once again be returned to their full strength. So at this point, I'm going to assume that the time is probably about 5 p.m. and chances are you got about 5 hours left in the park, because I'm assuming the park's going to be open until 10 p.m. given the fact that we do know Epic Universe is going to have a nighttime show, so the park will likely be open fairly late. So with that being the case, given that you've already tackled 90% of the rides at this point, I would say go ahead and do the shows at this point. Do the How to Train Your Dragon show, do the Harry Potter show, and then also go ahead and get some dinner, right? Get an early dinner in. After all, you had an early lunch, so you're probably hungry at this point as well. So go ahead and have an early dinner, enjoy some shows. Doesn't have to be in any sort of particular order. You could do a show, then have dinner, then go see another show, vice versa, whatever. Basically, we're using dinner and these shows as a way to wait out the crowds in that last land that we have yet to visit. And probably by the time you've done all that, it's probably about 8 o'clock. At this point, we are getting very close to the end of the day. We're getting very close to that nighttime spectacular. And keep in mind, because it is opening day, not a single person has left the park. Everybody there on opening day is planning to go from rope drop until close. There is not a single person leaving this park. So it's going to have the same amount of people in it the whole day. Let's not forget that. On subsequent days, you might have some people who have already left the park at this point. So you might have some better wait times available to you, but on opening day, crowds are not leaving the park. However, what they are doing is, because they are the sweats, they are the diehards, what are they doing at this point? They're lining up to try and get a good seat, the best seat as possible for the nighttime spectacular. That is what they're prioritizing at this moment. So as you get closer and closer to that nighttime show, wait times will be going down at rides throughout the park. So yeah, lines at 8 p.m. on the dot are still not going to look great, but as you get to 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, those wait times are going to start to sharply decrease. And here's the thing, folks, not only can you take advantage of that for that last land you have yet to visit, but you could also use it for re-rides on other things you've already been on that day. Not to mention, you could also avoid the nighttime spectacular altogether and instead opt to ride rides during it. You could say, hey, maybe I don't care about the nighttime spectacular that much. I'll see it next time I'm there. And instead, I'm going to use that time to ride rides with very little waits while everyone is watching the show. Again, this is diehards. These are sweats on opening day. They are going to be watching that show. There's going to be very little people still riding rides at that time. So that's going to be a great time for you to be able to take advantage and go ahead and ride these rides with next to no wait while everyone is watching that show. So, something to think about, but regardless, you should have enough time to get done with whatever you have left in that last most popular land before the nighttime show starts. So, if you do choose to go that route and you want to still see the nighttime show, you should have enough time left to pull it off. So, as you can see, folks, one, I'm a genius, and this is the greatest game plan ever devised. It's literally foolproof, and if for some reason it doesn't work for you, then guess what? That's your fault. You didn't follow the rules correctly. No, I'm kidding. If it doesn't work, then I'm an idiot. But I really do think that this strategy should work well. Obviously, if this video ends up having like 1 million views, then yeah, no. Do the exact opposite of what I said, please. But if this video has like 10,000 views or something like that, dude, take advantage. This is the greatest game plan ever devised, and you're gonna have a great day at Epic Universe. And those crowds, all those problems that people worried about going to the park, that they're not gonna get the most out of their day, dude, you're gonna get everything done when no one thought that was even remotely possible. And there's gonna be thousands of people walking away having done half, if not less, of what you were able to accomplish that day. You're gonna feel like an absolute stud if you follow this game plan. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. What is your game plan for Epic Universe when you go and visit? Love to hear what to say, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.